And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Recently, I went to a game convention here in Korea, and when I went to the board game section of that convention, there was a lot of different new games there that I had not seen before, but of all the games, one game really caught my eye, and that's this game here, Hexus Deluxe. And you can see, I guess maybe the reason it caught my eye is basically because it came with these really large three-dimensional Tetris-type pieces. And players were using these and building a structure, a cube, with them. And that just really sounded fascinating. Why don't we look at the game board? This is basically the board here. It's a circular track, and each of these tracks has one of these discs placed face down on it. There's different pieces here. You have a 3-block piece that's bent in shape, a 4 square, an L shape, a curved piece, that most hated piece in Tetris itself, a single block, a T shape, and then a 3-block. Oh, and a double block too. And so there's 4 of each block. They're in the middle of the board. Players take turns putting their pieces somewhere on the outside of this track and then rolling a single 6-sided die. When you roll the die, you simply take your piece and you move it as many spaces as you've rolled. If the coin or the token that's there is face down, you flip it over. In this instance, the coin here shows the 4 or the squared token. If you want to, and if it's available, you can take that and then put it onto your cube in any way you want. For example, I could stand it up like that. I can lay it down. It doesn't really matter. But once you put it down, it's there forever. You can't move or change it later on. And so on and so forth. As players will turn over these discs, they'll show different pieces. Occasionally, you'll turn over one that shows this. That allows you to steal a piece from someone else's structure that they're building. Or you will turn over this token, which allows you to take a piece of your choice. And then there's just pieces that show the different types of objects in the middle. If you land on someone else, you are forced to trade a piece with them. You give them one from theirs, they give you one from theirs. I mean, you give them one of yours, and then you take one of theirs, and you switch. Now, what you're trying to do is you're trying to build the perfect cube. As I'm building here in the middle, and I can place things any way I want. At first, it's pretty easy. You can place things however you want. You'll get the pieces you need, hopefully. But eventually, you might get a piece, for example, like this L, that just doesn't seem to fit well. And in fact, if I build it here, there's no way I'm going to get a perfect cube. And in that time, you have to make a decision. Am I going to take this piece, or am I going to leave it? If I take this piece, there's no way I can get a perfect cube anymore. However, there's a real possibility that none of the players will get a perfect cube. So in that instance, the game will continue till either all the pieces run out or until all the coins are turned over. And then at that time, the player who has the most completed levels is the winner. So in this instance, if you can look at the 3-dimensional here, I have a 2-level all around. And so I would win if no one else had a 2 higher level. Here I have 2 completed cubes. Let's say no one managed to get a perfect cube at the end of the game. So that this is what it looks like at the end of the game. Both of these structures have 3 complete levels. Therefore, we go to the next highest, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4 extra blocks on this one, and there are 2 extra blocks on this one. So this is the guy who would win. But let's say, for example, this yellow cube was not here. Even though it's higher than this one, it only has 2 complete layers, so therefore this player would win. It's a pretty simple tiebreaker, and usually during the course of a game you have to decide, are you going to try to get that perfect cube, which means you're going to give up a lot of pieces and hope to get that perfect piece you need to finish, or are you simply going to go as high as you can and try and beat everybody else? The pieces for this game are really spectacular. They're plastic, they're easy to handle, they're really large, and they really look neat when you put them all on the table and you're building. It's a lot of fun. The coins themselves are you have to put stickers on them at the beginning of the game, but they're very chunky, very thick, and then you have these really cool pieces that you're putting on top of them. The board itself is good. The box, I wish it wasn't so long. Harkening back to your old old game boxes, but still, I guess it's because inside the box here you have a spot where all the pieces for each type fit perfectly, and that's a pretty neat thing. I like the game a lot, but it's really very simple. There's not a whole lot of choices. When you roll a dice, you simply move your piece, you get what it says, and your choice basically is where you'll put it on your cube or if you will take it at all. Other than that, you simply hope to get lucky. Now, we made a few rules modifications and really upped the ante. The very simple one is when you roll, you pick which direction you move. Or we turn over some of the tiles at the beginning or give some players maybe one time during a game they can move just one or two. There's different variations that you can play. But I found that in its basic form, this is a very good game for children. It teaches them how to think spatially, that perhaps laying this piece flat is not always the best way to place it. Maybe placing it three-dimensionally is better. And knowing that just taking these small cubes is not always a good idea, but saving them for later on when you can plug in a hole. All that put together just really ups the ante and makes this a really good game that I can play with my own children. And I found that I think is the best use for the game. For adults, they might weary of it, although it is neat, to see and play and put the cubes together. Maybe with a few modifications, you can make it more strategic. As it is, I'd say it's more mediocre in that regard. But for families, an excellent, well-designed, good-looking, and fun game.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.